They said retirement would be the time to slow down, to rest, to ease into stillness after decades of movement. But not for Henry. Henry was 68 when he walked into my office, not hunched over or dragging his feet like most new patients. No, Henry had the walk of a man with purpose, but behind the firm handshake and kind smile, I sensed something deeper, a man searching for his second wind. "I feel like I'm still in the race, Doc," he said, "but lately, it's like my engine won't start." He told me about the long hikes he used to take with his grandkids, about the joy he felt running drills on the community softball field, about the quiet moments with his wife, once full of closeness, now fading into polite distance. What struck me wasn't just his story, it was the way he told it, with a kind of quiet urgency, like he didn't want to accept that this was simply what aging was supposed to feel like. And I agreed with him, because men like Henry aren't slowing down because they want to. They're slowing down because their fuel systems, their energy, circulation, and hormones have shifted, and no one ever showed them how to adapt. Henry wasn't looking for some miracle cure. He wasn't chasing youth. He was simply asking, "How can I feel like myself again?" That's when I told him something I only say to men who are truly ready to hear it. You don't need to reverse time. You just need to start honoring the man you are now, with habits that fit your body today. Then I shared with him a surprising truth. The men I've seen thrive into their 60s, 70s, even 80s. They weren't relying on brutal gym sessions or stacks of supplements. They were doing something much simpler, and in many ways, more powerful. They were living with rhythm, a steady pattern of daily movement, clean fuel, deep sleep. And one habit they all seemed to share? They started their day like they were training for a mission. And that's exactly what I want to share with you in this video. Henry's journey, from low energy and fading connection to a man who found his second wind, is one I'll never forget. And it all started with a shift in mindset, a shift in fuel, a shift in how he approached each morning. In the next section, I'll show you what that looked like. Not as a list of tips, but as a real transformation that began with one morning, and the choice to do things differently. The first real change in Henry's journey didn't happen at the gym. It happened in his kitchen. It was a Wednesday morning, one of those early spring days where the light still feels soft and unsure. Henry had just come back from a routine checkup. His blood pressure was steady, cholesterol manageable, but he told me something that stopped me in my tracks. "I've been waking up tired, Doc. Not just groggy, I mean weary. And my wife's noticed too." He wasn't talking about snoring or sleep. He was talking about presence. That quiet energy a man brings into a room when he feels confident in his own skin. So I asked him what his mornings looked like. Toast, sometimes cereal, maybe eggs on weekends, coffee, strong and fast, nothing unusual. But what was missing wasn't just a superfood or a vitamin. It was a signal, a clear message to his body that said, "We're waking up for a reason. We've got things to do. Let's move." That's when I introduced Henry to what I call the vitality trigger. It's not a diet plan. It's a simple ritual built around one core idea. Fuel your body like it's a machine worth maintaining, not patching up after it breaks. And it began with something deceptively simple. Red grapes. He was skeptical at first. "Grapes?" he asked, laughing. "You mean like a fruit snack?" But red grapes are more than that, especially for men over 60. They contain a compound called resveratrol, one of the most powerful natural agents for blood vessel health. It works by improving nitric oxide availability, helping arteries relax and blood flow move, and the results aren't just inside lab tests. I've had patients like Henry report warmer hands and feet, improved focus, and yes, even firmer performance in the bedroom. So we made a deal. Every morning before his coffee, he'd eat a small bowl of red grapes, just 1 cup. Nothing fancy, no shakes, no powders, just pure natural fuel. The next piece of Henry's morning wasn't a supplement either. It was movement, but not the kind you see in gyms. I told him, don't exercise, activate. So he began with 5 minutes of walking, right after the grapes. Rain or shine, indoors or out. He said it felt silly at first, pacing his living room. But after a few days, something shifted. "It's like my body's finally remembering how to start the engine again," he told me on a follow-up call. By the end of week 1, Henry wasn't just moving more, he was feeling more. Clearer mornings, fewer crashes, and most importantly, more present at the breakfast table with his wife. And this was just the beginning. Because next, we added something small and red. A food most people associate with Thanksgiving. But for Henry, it became the silent guardian of his most private health concern. Something he hadn't told anyone but me. In the next part, I'll share how one overlooked fruit helped Henry address inflammation, intimacy, and an issue men rarely talk about, with surprising results. When Henry returned 2 weeks later, I could already see it in his posture. He walked into my office with a certain ease, less tension in the shoulders, more stillness in the face. And after a quick handshake, he said something I didn't expect. "My wife noticed I'm not waking up as much at night. Now, you and I both know what that really means. It's not just about better sleep, it's about comfort, about dignity." So I asked him if he was still following the red grape ritual. He nodded. "Haven't missed a day." But I added something. He started drinking a small glass of unsweetened cranberry juice each morning, just 4 ounces, just a little tart shot of nature. And what followed was more than either of us expected. By the end of week 3, Henry reported fewer nighttime wake-ups, steadier energy. "My confidence is back," he said. "Not just physically, emotionally. I feel more connected." You see, cranberries are more than a bladder remedy. They're powerful protectors of the entire urinary and circulatory system. But more than anything, cranberries relieve pressure, not just in the body, but in the mind. He even joked, "I'm not racing to the bathroom before I finish my morning crossword anymore." That's where we turn to something golden, sweet, and almost always underestimated. By week 5, Henry wasn't just walking differently. He was waking up differently. You know the kind of morning I'm talking about. When you open your eyes, and instead of dragging your body into the day, you rise into it. That's what Henry had started to notice. And when I asked what had changed, he didn't hesitate. "Papaya," he said with a smile. So he started adding a cup of papaya to his morning plate, just a small bowl, sometimes with yogurt, sometimes on its own. The effects, he said, were almost subtle at first. But by day 4, something shifted. I wasn't dragging by 11 a.m., he told me. And my mood? I felt lighter, like my brain wasn't swimming upstream anymore. Henry's wife noticed it too. She said my eyes looked different, he chuckled, like I was paying attention again. And that's when I knew something deeper had shifted. This wasn't just a circulation story anymore, it was a connection story. The truth is, papaya works behind the scenes, helping the pituitary gland, the testes, the blood vessels all communicate better. More responsiveness, more confidence, more intimacy without fear or fatigue. And maybe that's what Henry had been missing most, not just the act, but the feeling of wanting to act. And I have to say, this next fruit is the quietest of them all, but perhaps the most profound. There's something about cherries. Not just the taste, though Henry swore the dark, tart ones were his favorite, but the pace they create. The way you can't really rush a cherry. You bite, chew, savor. There's a natural slowness to it, a kind of presence. And that's exactly what Henry needed next. You see, by week 7, the physical changes were noticeable. His energy was up. He wasn't crashing mid-morning. His legs felt stronger, his circulation more awake. Even his sleep was improving. But something still felt distant. "I'm here," he told me. "But I'm not really with her." He meant his wife. They'd been sleeping in separate beds for over a year, not because of conflict, but because of discomfort. Her night sweats, his bathroom trips, and perhaps more than either of them said out loud. A quiet grief that intimacy had quietly slipped out the back door. That's when we introduced cherries. At first, it seemed like an odd suggestion, but I explained to Henry that cherries, particularly tart cherries, are rich in anthocyanins, antioxidants that soften the blood vessels. They also contain natural melatonin, which helps regulate deep sleep cycles. Better sleep, I told him, often leads to better connection. So he began adding a handful of cherries each evening, sometimes fresh, sometimes frozen and thawed, occasionally as pure tart cherry juice. The result? Something softened, he said. Not just physically, though yes, his nighttime restlessness reduced and his morning erections became more frequent, but emotionally. His walls softened. The emotional numbness that had crept in over the past few years, it started to melt. Henry found himself listening more, laughing at old jokes, reaching for her hand again. It wasn't fireworks, it wasn't dramatic. It was something deeper, safety. The kind that lets intimacy return, not through pressure, but through permission. From a physiological standpoint, cherries were working on multiple levels, supporting testosterone rhythm by improving sleep, enhancing blood flow to the pelvic region, lowering cortisol, and increasing oxytocin, the hormone of trust and emotional bonding. Henry didn't need a lecture on hormones. He just needed to feel like himself again, and cherries somehow helped open that door. One night, a few weeks into this routine, Henry told me he and his wife sat on the back porch after dinner. No TV, no phones, just talking, watching the dusk roll in. "She leaned on my shoulder," he said quietly. "Hadn't done that in years." And in that moment, I realized, sometimes healing isn't about performance. It's about presence. It's about feeling calm enough, confident enough, connected enough to simply be there. That's what cherries gave Henry. Not a miracle, not a magic pill, but a slow, steady reminder of who he was, and who he still could be. Now we'd reached the final stretch of Henry's journey. 4 fruits, 4 chapters of renewal. From circulation to hormones, energy to connection. This wasn't just a nutrition shift, it was a return. But there was still one question left. How do you keep it going? In the final part of this story, I'll show you how Henry built a morning rhythm. By the time Henry reached the 10th week of his transformation, I noticed something different in his voice. He wasn't just hoping anymore. He was living again. But the question now was no longer what works. It was, how do I make this last? Because let's be honest, feeling good for a week or two is one thing. But keeping that energy, that circulation, that connection day after day, that's where most men fall off. I've seen it happen. They try a new diet, a new supplement, a new workout app, and for a while it works. They feel a spark. But then the routine fades. And so do the results. That's when I sat down with Henry and we talked about rhythm, not intensity. Rhythm, a pattern, a groove. Something that becomes so simple, so automatic, it's part of your life, not something added to it. So we built Henry's morning vitality ritual, based on the same 4 fruits. Step 1. Red grapes upon waking. The moment Henry opened his eyes before coffee or breakfast, he'd have a small bowl of cold red grapes waiting. Just a few, nothing fancy. Those grapes, rich in resveratrol, would gently wake up his blood vessels, help get oxygen moving, and, as he liked to say, remind my heart what it's here to do. He told me something one morning. It's like taking a breath, but with flavor. Step 2. Cranberry shot with his first glass of water. After brushing his teeth, Henry would pour 2 ounces of unsweetened cranberry juice into his water. It wasn't about taste, it was about function. That cranberry was his kidney tonic, his urinary peacekeeper. The thing that gave him confidence to go for long walks again, without worrying about sudden urges or discomfort. "You have no idea what it means," he once said, "to not plan your life around bathrooms." Step 3. Papaya in the mid-morning snack. Around 10 a.m., when most men crash, Henry did the opposite. That's when he'd slice up a few chunks of ripe papaya, sometimes blended with Greek yogurt, sometimes just fresh with a spoon. The enzymes in papaya helped reduce inflammation and kept his joints flexible. But more importantly, this was the moment he felt awake in his skin. He described it as a calm energy, not jittery, not forced, just present. Step 4. Cherries after dinner. Finally, after a light dinner, Henry would enjoy a small bowl of cherries, sometimes fresh, often frozen and thawed. This wasn't dessert. It was closure. The melatonin and anthocyanins in cherries helped him wind down, sleep deeper, and regulate his hormones overnight. By week 12, he said something I'll never forget. "I used to wake up exhausted. Now I wake up rested and proud." A day that worked with his body. Henry wasn't chasing youth. He wasn't trying to look 30 or lift 200 pounds at the gym. He just wanted to feel like himself again, to show up for his wife, to stay present with his grandchildren, to walk upstairs without pain or fear. And with this routine, 4 fruits, 4 anchors, he did exactly that. More importantly, it didn't feel like a chore. He told me, "I don't think about it anymore. It just is, like brushing my teeth or locking the door. It's part of who I am now." That's the secret. Transformation doesn't come from big changes. It comes from small, repeatable decisions, done in rhythm with your body, not against it. For Henry, that rhythm was built on the natural wisdom of food, not formulas, and it helped him not only reclaim his health, but keep it. In the final part of this story, I'll share the message Henry left behind for other men, especially those who feel like their best days are behind them. It's simple, but it might just be the most important truth we've shared in this entire journey. A few months after Henry's transformation, I received a letter from him. It wasn't clinical. It wasn't filled with lab results or progress charts. It was handwritten, folded neatly, and placed in an envelope that simply read, "For the next man who feels like I once did." I've kept that letter in my office ever since, and with his family's permission, I want to share a part of it with you. Because whether you're 60, 70, or somewhere in between, if you felt yourself slipping, shrinking, or giving up, this might be the message you need to hear. Dear friend, I don't know your name, but I know your story, because it was mine. I know what it's like to sit on the edge of the bed and feel like something's missing, to look at the mirror and not recognize the man staring back, not because of wrinkles or gray hair, but because the spark is gone, the light in your eyes, the lift in your shoulders, the reason to try. There was a time when I thought that was just aging, that slowing down meant fading out. But I was wrong. What I learned, what I lived, is that the body doesn't give up on you. It just waits for you to remember it. That's all I did. I remembered. I listened to Dr. Carr. I tried a few simple things, grapes in the morning, cherries at night, and I watched myself come back to life. It wasn't overnight. It wasn't magic, but it was mine. And now, I walk with my wife in the evening, not because I have to, but because I want to. I hold her hand. I laugh with my grandkids. I sleep through the night. I even feel a little dangerous again in ways I thought were long gone. So, if you're reading this and you think it's too late, I promise you, it's not. You don't need to be younger. You just need to believe you're still alive. Start small. Pick one thing. Give your body a reason to remember. You'll be amazed at what it does with that. I believe in you. Henry. I remember the first time I read that letter. I sat in my office long after everyone had gone home. I read it once, then twice, and then I placed it in a frame and set it on my bookshelf. Because Henry's story wasn't just his, it was every man's. It was every man who had been told to accept less, to shrink, to disappear quietly. But Henry didn't disappear. He reappeared. He found his way back, not through medication, not through punishment, but through rhythm, through nourishment, through belief. And now, so can you. That's what this entire journey has been about. Not fruit, not food, but hope. The kind that lives in your cells, that waits for your signal, that reawakens when you say, "I'm not done yet." So if you've listened this far, maybe this story was meant for you. Maybe today's the day you decide to reclaim your rhythm. And when you do, remember Henry. Remember his bowl of grapes, his evening cherries, his slow walk with his wife, his quiet confidence. Because you're not broken. You're just waiting to remember who you are.